I'm Troy Zenevich, new chapter, Case Western Reserve, class of 1990, though I didn't graduate in 1990. I was actually only a 3-semester brother there. But interesting story with that is in starting at Case, they had an actual camp for freshmen. So my father, I remember after running to go to the bookstore and just see what they had, coming back, I see him talking to 3 guys with Greek letters. Here they were as 3 Zates. Jim Parinella, Jim Bollinger, and I believe it was my soon-to-be big brother, Al Phipps. We're all talking to my dad. I'm going, what the heck's going on? Not realizing my dad had even pledged Zeta Psi back in class, he would have been class of 55, depledged. And so how funny is that? They talked to him before I got to know him. And so it started, not even realizing I'd be a Zate then when I was then asked, and started as a freshman. Initiated as a brother February 14th, 1987. You know, for most of my career in automotive, I really wasn't involved with Zeta Psi or even with my home chapter. I mean, occasionally going back for a clam bake. And in 2009, we had the convention in Cleveland, and it started making me think more of how can I get involved. But still, being in automotive, work choked me away, and I wasn't able to be involved. And changing careers and getting into the DC area, I knew I'd have more time, and now I had 3 chapters that were close enough to me that I used to joke that, hey, 1 out of the 3 might like me. With that, you know, I started, I remember I met the Maryland guys first, and we were going out, there was a weekend thing. I just moved here in September, so it was fall, so there was a get-together, so we met up with them. And really never got to meet the Georgetown, and then one of the other local elders here, McLean Key, invited me over to the American University House and started to get to know those guys. And, you know, you're always going, all right, you know, there's the generational difference, you know, I was 46 to 47 at the time, and, you know, here's all these 18 to 20-year-old, you know, how are they going to, so they didn't make me feel funny or weird, you know, they didn't make me feel like I was the oddball. As we joked, yeah, I'm the old guy in the corner talking, but no, they were very open. They actually enjoyed having me around, and as one of them, I asked later, I said, why do you guys like me hanging around? They're like, you talk with us, which is a big difference than some people talk at people. And I was talking with them because they're my brothers. So even in general life, talking to somebody versus at somebody. In September of 2015, I hadn't been feeling good, and so I went back in to get a CT scan, and that's when we found out I was diagnosed with cancer. At the time, we didn't know how bad it was, and a story with that. So I have the CT on a Friday morning, and the doctor calls me at 7 p.m. So here's me, you know, the logical mind of the engineer in me goes to the doctor, so how screwed am I? And getting a pause, and I said, Doc, remember, this is the engineer. It's okay. Just tell me what's going on. And that's when I found out I had cancer in the kidney, lymph nodes, and liver. Thing is, 5 days later, I was hospitalized, is when we found it was in my spine, too. So during that week, we did a biopsy. Literally a week later, so now we're into beginning of October, so when I found out I had stage 4. Terminal. And at the time, they said you got 14 months. So, knowing I had 14 months, I'm not married. I have no children. Yeah, I got a mom and dad and a sister and brother, but kept looking so what do I want to do? Didn't know, actually, in going into my cancer in October, November, we didn't even know if I'd only last a few months. But I know, you know, so I was like, what can I give back? Let's face it, I'm not super rich, but I'm comfortable. And so with that, you know, I've got a good stash of money that I had, you know, from my engineering years, and was wanting to do something. And, you know, since I've gotten more involved with Zeta Psi, I wanted to do something back. And it sort of started around, was watching on some of the posts, because a lot of Zetas like to post emails and that back and forth, and it was about one had just purchased a bronze plaque that was probably done 100 years ago, though we didn't have any history on it. And I looked at that and I went, oh, I can make a copy. And then a couple of minutes later, I'm thinking I can do better. And so I started writing out, well, a plaque was one idea. And I had a whole bunch of ideas was writing down. And I kept coming back to the plaque. I says, go big or go home. The escutcheon is our coat of arms. And it has meaning to all of us as a brother of Zeta Psi. And not just the escutcheon, but something that we can always look to be proud to. And another, I made a statement to some guys that I looked back at my chapter as new, founded in 1884. You know, I was so proud of our chapter, you know, document that basically said you are in the new chapter. And this thing's 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall, and all in its grandeur from 1884. And I thought that was so neat. And part of the reason why looking at the doing the escutcheon is, yeah, the badge is one thing, but the escutcheon means so much more, I think. So I went and started pricing around and going to different companies and different processes. And just like I did in automotive, it was project management 101, and said, okay, I can do this. And was hooked up with our president at the time, Barth Gillian, and to let him know what I was thinking of doing. So at least I just didn't surprise the whole heck out of the fraternity of going, you know, what's this? So this way I could, you know, make sure I had all the right designs and that, and just took it on like I would any other project. Using a bronze escutcheon from 100 years ago was my basis. It was only about, you know, the size of a small plate, 8 inches by 9 inches, oval, and not very detailed. And I knew from process it was what's called a sand molding. Compared to what I've worked with in automotive, I've done that's more foundry work, which I did have a little experience in, but I've done injection molding. There's all different types of molding type processes that I'd worked with. Though I hadn't used sand that much, it was actually what we consider very low tech. And I had looked at, instead of a bronze, did I want aluminum? Did we want, instead of sand, did I want a hammered? Literally to take a sheet of material, make a die, and would hammer the sheet and then get the process. But the more I looked into it, even though it was a lot less expensive, I could have saved a third of my cost doing that hammered, good detail, but it's not going to hold up. I mean, so you got something that's not even, you know, 1/8 of an inch thick, and I'm going, how's that going to hold up for long term? And again, for legacy, I was looking at something. These other plaques, though we had no history on it, but lasted 100 years. How can I make something that's going to do the same, if not longer? I mean, physically they'll hold up, but, you know, so that's why I reverted back to sand casting and wanted something local. So I had something, the company I picked was in Pennsylvania. After getting quotes, some wouldn't even quote me because nobody had done an order that size. Most of these places usually only do one plaque. And here's me going, I want 75 of them. What can you do for me? And I had one company going, it's about this. Well, I sort of need something more. I need something in writing, but they wouldn't give it to me because most people backed out. So even with what I wanted to do, even in their own industry, nobody makes those quantities. Even government, most of the time, they're only buying one here, one there for a government agency. And here's me going, no, I want 75. And when I started looking at the size, for the cost of going 16 inches by 16 inches for the bronze escutcheon plaque, the cost was minimal going from 10 to 10 to 16 by 16. It was more material than engineering or anything else. So that's what I said. For me, it was go big or go home. So I went big, and I figured I'd make a statement.
What you're seeing them bring out now is our escutcheon, our esteemed escutcheon. Guys, there should be 4 of them. Hint, hint. So these are 4 of 75 bronze escutcheons made 16 inches by 16 inches square. The reason I bought them is, as I said, I went into one chapter, we have tons of history. I have another one that has nothing. I said, no, every chapter deserves to have something. So I said I bought 75. I'm giving 65 to Grand Chapter for distribution. This way they got some extras. You know how things get lost around here. I'm keeping 10 for myself. The reason I'm doing the 10, 2 of them that are here today are to be given to the auction. Whether they auction them 1 today or 2, that's for them. I'm giving them to auction for the kids to help them out. This way, so any of you elders with some deep pockets, I hope you start a bidding war, because I want to see that happen. So that left 8. 2 of them I'm keeping for myself. 1 I'm actually going to put on my tombstone. And interesting, but I figured, hey, what the hell? I'm the first one with a sketching on there at tombstone. Hey, maybe I can end up being like Edgar Allan Poe and the guys come and leave drunk stuff for me. I'm like, okay.
In giving the presentation, you know, you always hope that it comes off well. Afterwards, seeing it did. And probably one of the best ones I'd ever given, I'd like to say. And but then my hand got sore for the next, you know, from Grand Chapter all the way through our banquet that evening. Everybody just coming up and saying all thanks and this and that, you know, from elder to active alike. So that was heartfelt, very much. As you see, I wear my emotion on my sleeve, but I'm allowed. But one, I remember there was actually the representative from one of our newer chapters, Michigan State, came up and, you know, we sat and we was talking. It's, you know, I've been trying to get to my room for the past hour, you know, since it's late at night, but you know, I wanted to give him the time to talk, and he was even willing. He goes, Troy, we'll pay your way up to come visit us. He goes, because you were so genuine. And, you know, it wasn't textbook. He goes, that was real. And whether I do get a chance to go up to visit, you know, is still to be seen. But, you know, that I remember, even though a lot of people had thanked me, that one stuck out there. I mean, here's a bunch of 18, 20-year-olds going, we're going to give you money to come and talk to us just because you're real. And I'm going, I think now I can afford to go visit you guys without that. But, you know, that's even coming from the younger guys coming up of what that means to them. You mentioned 50 years from now. I'm probably going to not make 1 or 2. So, you know, for them looking at it, it's just for the appreciation for what it is. I mean, not necessarily looking that, oh yeah, this is something Troy gave us or whatever. If they remember that, great. But it's about just what it is and what it stands for. You know, the brotherhood, the commitment. Not just as an active, which I tried to do more in my elder years, but just never had the opportunity. There's some others that have spent a lot of time, and, you know, people over time, they get married, they have kids, and you fall away from, you know, what you tried doing, in college with the fraternity and the brotherhood. And, you know, so at least that they have something to look back. And, you know, again, it existing for 50 years is a way for them to look back and something to be proud of in their own house. Compared to other, quote, fraternities that might be on campus, nobody's going to have anything like this. Nobody else has, you know, that dedication out there. And that's why I wanted to do this, is we stand apart. And to let everybody know, yes, we stand apart. here's a little thing that happened to me while I was inactive. This would probably have been, the spring of '87. So I lived about an hour, hour and a half away, and the one weekend I wanted to leave. Now, because my dad was in the computer industry, I had one of the, not only the best computers in the house, probably even on campus, and everybody wanted to borrow it. Remember, this is '86, '87. So, of course, not that I don't trust those guys, but I wanted to lock up my door. And I even had to lock up my window. I was on the second floor, and at the chapter house at Case, you could actually walk out and walk in through the window. So, because I locked it up all tight, they couldn't get in. So a couple of the guys, this is Friday night, they're sitting around and going, he wouldn't let us in the room. We wanted to use the computer. So they decided to remove my room from existence. Now, what that means is your door is recessed, and there's a door well, if you want to call it. So what they did is they went out, bought drywall and the material, and literally drywalled my door in, painted it, and even put the baseboard back that we had at the extra down in the basement. And so now my room was removed from existence. So for the whole weekend, my room didn't exist. And it was interesting because at the time, though I was living there, it was right across from the second floor bathroom. So everybody would come out and going, I thought there was a door there. And when I came back on late Sunday, my parents are with me, and we get up to the second floor, and there's like, wow, there's a lot of people up here. You know, more than normal, just because video games, everybody was playing either, you know, Commodore 64 or whatever. And I'm walking down the hallway, and I'm going, wow, this hallway's getting long. Where's my door? And here they've even put pictures are outside my door and somebody else's. So next thing you know, I'm trying to feel on the concrete, and then I found where my door was. I mean, it was just interesting. They removed my room from existence. So if I hadn't done the windows, I probably would have gone in and out through the window if I would have had to. So I had to break in. So I had to break into my own room.
Was it malicious? Or
Oh, no, nothing was malicious. We were one of the more fun houses. So between that, we'd also, one of the other things we used to do were called room kits, where you'd come into the person's room and remove anything with a nut, bolt, or screw, and put them all in a baggie and say, here you go, here's your baggie, and now you have to put everything back together. Now, granted, at the time, there was, all you had was your radio and your chair and, you know, maybe your bed or whatever you had. So there wasn't a lot of things compared to like today. So even us with one of the other fraternity houses on there is, we went over and did their dishes for one day. And they were like, how dare you guys do our dishes? So they'd come over and like mow the lawn or something. You know, it was silly things like that. Or went over, actually stole one of our brothers, made him watch cartoons and gave him cereal to eat. Oh, yeah. I mean, those were the pranks of the fun stuff we did. You always hear the bad, and that was the fun, where we were making fun of other people, some other houses that weren't as nice and like to fight. We're like, why fight? We're having, you know, have fun about it. So, so between removing my room from existence or room kits or little things like that, I mean, never malicious, always in fun, lightheartedness.
I think if I was going to use words that would describe Troy, it would be genuine. That there was nothing, everything about Troy was authentic. And that meant that in good times, he was fun to be around, and in bad times, he'd let you know, hey, these are things that we got to do better, but he'd make you feel good about it, even though you knew that we had to do things better. And his time at Case was only, I think he was only there for 3 semesters, and he decided to change courses and go off to Youngstown State to finish his school, but even after that, he was regularly a presence in the house throughout.
So besides the bronze escutcheon, one of the other items that I had awarded at the grand chapter meeting was I bought chapter guards. Now we have our badge of Zeta Psi, but usually off the side is the actual letter or letters for your chapter. And I wanted to do something for my home chapter, new, and as I call my adopted chapter, the Delta Chi chapter. So I went and bought 56 pins, but normally our chapter guards are in with pearls. My birthstone is the garnet, so I had, instead of pearls, I had garnets put in there. So I bought 56 of them. I gave 50 to each house, so for the next 25 years, they could give out 2 each year to somebody who I thought was deserving. And what I mean by deserving is not the highest GPA or the most community service or whatever, as I call it just the good guy award. Somebody who has that honor, trust, someone who's, that because of my work for the VA, has pride in their armed services, etc. And I bought, so even though I gave them 50, I had 6 left over. I wanted to give to certain individuals throughout my life, whether at Delta Chi or at the new chapter, just to honor them. So like I said, if they think of me every once in a while. So that was the other thing that I had done at the 169th convention. So one of the other items that I have in the works is, as I gave the bronze escutcheon to each chapter, is what's one of the other items that we either don't have or I think need. And another item came to mind was a ceremonial sword. So, because nothing's been standardized, even though it's something that, we cherish, not every chapter has one, or not the same thing. So, after doing some research and talking with people, we're going to decide to do one based off a Civil War design. We were founded in 1847. Well, it's hard to say what sword they used, but knowing if they were if any of their brothers or friends or family were in the service, well, let's face it, they were in New York going to school, they had to be rich. That meant they were an officer. Looking at the designs we have on our own escutcheon, I ruled out that it's not naval and it's not cavalry based on the sword, so I want officer infantry. Well, to try to find a reproduction from 1847 or even the 1850 just they don't exist really, or they're too expensive. I'm better off buying brand new, or old ones and having historical ones. So I decided to go on in reference to the Chattanooga story, went with a Union officer's sword, and not only looking at procuring them for all the chapters, is also having them engraved with the badge of Zeta Psi on the blade and scabbard, but then also even the chapter letters on the opposite side, on the blade and potential scabbard. So it's some things we're still working out of what we're going to put on the blade and scabbard, but then every chapter will have their own unique one. So I think that'll be exciting to do, and hopefully sometime beginning of 2017 that'll come to fruition. Looking a little bit of the history, as you know, let's face it, I have terminal cancer, I'm going to die. So I asked the question, I said, do we have a ritual, if you're a Zate, that, what will we do, for a Zeta Psi brother if you die? And pretty much I had all these pauses and blank stares. I'm like, obviously we have nothing then. So which made me think, I'm like, wow, in 169 years, we don't even have that little process, So I'm taking it upon myself with another active that, okay, we're going to sort of write something up. And as I deal with the funeral homes and that, and get other information of what military does so we don't infringe, and looking at even the simplest things of, so even if 21 white carnations, or if you had military service having in Flanders Fields spoken, if you did just even government service or that, having 21 red poppies also. I mean, so these are things we're thinking about, that if nobody had anything, just even the simplest things like that. Doesn't mean, because the chances of, unfortunately, having even another brother at your funeral, sometimes it gets pretty scarce. And it's, so even if you'd like something, you can still do it on your own. So working on that process now. Even I had mentioned the ceremonial swords that we're getting, that if so choose, how would that be displayed? And those are some questions I'll be working out. So I got something in the in in the fire working on, but hopefully that will be done before I pass along, because I'm going to do it at mine, whether it's formalized or not, and then say, here's the process.
During the convention this week, we actually took a few minutes to remember Troy Zenevich from our chapter at Case Western Reserve, who passed away in the fall of 2016. And Troy had had a significant impact on our fraternity last year when he attended the convention and when he made a profound presentation at our grand chapter meeting. And we recorded that, and it's on the Zeta Psi YouTube channel, and I encourage all brothers to see that, because Brother Zenevich's message was all about the legacy, and a legacy that is important to all of us and that we should continue to contribute to. Today we remembered Brother Zenevich again by awarding him with one of these gold blazers, which is an important symbol within our fraternity for those brothers who are profound in their knowledge of history or the ritual and have had an impact in Zeta Psi.
And so in honor of his presentation, of his legacy and his oral presentation of what Zeta Psi meant to him and why he undertook this legacy and presented it, he was awarded the worthy level in the Torch of Zeta Psi. And this weekend at the Grand Chapter meeting, the ceremonial jacket, which is awarded to members of the worthy, was awarded to Troy posthumously. And Alan and I and Bill Weisenhorn from the Delta Chi chapter will be presenting it to Troy's parents later this year as its deserved place.
I think if Troy were here now, he would accept this with glee, but also with a great deal of humility, because Troy never assumed that he deserved any special attention, and really he always did, but he never assumed it. He was a man of humility and of grace, and like I said before, at the same time, just fun to be around and love to be part of the Zeta Psi experience.